Hey, and welcome to another installment of Catching Up with Chris, Jake, and Sam. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
And yeah, here we are. It's now we're now in November. Sweet, sweet November.
Nothing lasts forever, man.
Yeah. Is that the tagline of the movie?
In the cold November rain.
No.
That's a song.
Yeah, but Sweet November is a movie starring Keanu Reeves and Charlize Theron.
Oh, no, I was just quoting the Guns N' Roses song.
Oh, okay.
Which was originally like 28 minutes long.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn. And it was originally recorded during the Appetite for Destruction sessions. It wasn't until Use Your Illusion that they decided to add it. Speaking of Keanu Reeves, to go way back, though, we also had John Wick.
Yes.
Since the last episode. How much did that movie kick ass?
It was probably the best like non-Marvel movie I've seen this year.
And I said
I'm trying to remember what else I've seen this year other than Marvel movies, but
Ninja Turtles, which definitely
Gone
better
Girl.
than Ninja Turtles. Gone
Yeah.
Girl. Oh, ooh, that's close. Totally different movies, but
Yeah.
And I made this kind of observation after the movie ended because I saw it with these guys. It's the best Punisher movie. Like if you replaced John Wick with Frank Castle and his his background and all that shit, but action-wise, it's basically like the best Punisher movie I've ever seen.
I couldn't have asked for more. As a massive Keanu fan, it was everything. It is everything. I loved it.
Yeah. I mean, the action sequences, and it just, Chris, you're the guy that does all kinds of cool things behind the camera. I mean, how do you think it just looked?
Dude, the overall look of it was amazing. I loved their color play. I loved their high contrast a lot of times. Their camera work was great. It was a high octane action movie that didn't utilize chaos editing like the Bourne Identity movies or like a lot of basically every action movie in the past 10 years is like, people complain about like the shaky cam, and then like during like fight scenes and stuff like that, like all the angles are so tight that you have no idea what's going on, and all you know is that there's motion happening. No, you actually could follow what was going on. You knew where he was, you knew where all of his enemies were, all kinds of great stuff that I haven't seen in an action movie in probably like the last decade, and that was great. Loved that element of it.
Yeah, it's far and away, like, I know all three of us have seen like a lot of kind of low rent action movies, be it Schwarzenegger, Stallone, insert, action star here, including the Expendables. Honest to God, this movie's better than any of the Expendables movies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good time. If you're looking to get that like action, gunplay and all that sort of thing, if you're looking for something that satisfies that need, this delivers, man.
Well, I was talking to someone about the movie, and they were like, "Oh yeah, Keanu. They just put Keanu in there because he doesn't have to say much, doesn't have to act, and just whatever." And I'm like, no, you got it wrong, because Keanu is perfect for that stoic figure, a man on a mission.
Yeah,
and it's the most ferocious I've ever seen him, not just action wise, but in terms of like venom that he spews.
Yeah, energy. Just that kind of like. Juju.
Yeah, there's a scene where he finally just lets loose, not like with action, but with his words, because he's a very quiet character, and he excels at that. He's so good at that. That's why he was great as Neo. That's why Neo worked.
Instead of Will Smith,
exactly.
Supposed to be
Neo. Like, no disrespect to Will Smith, but like that movie, I don't think would have been the same and as popular if it wasn't for Keanu's stoic quality to it.
Yeah.
And I mean that in the best way possible, because I actually think Keanu is a really good actor. He's got certain performances that are weird, certain accents, not the best, but John Wick is a perfect example of why Keanu, when put in the right role, and just shows that he has the chops to be a great actor. And the dude's like 50.
Yeah, he's in his early 50s
he,
now,
all the stunt work, a lot, like you said, a lot of gunplay, a lot of headshots.
The joke that we like to make around here is that Keanu Reeves stopped acting at 30? He stopped aging at 35.
35, and he's just riding the wave.
He's doing well. But I mean, in the beginning of that movie, when he gets his motivation to basically fuck over the mob, that's the most emotion I've seen him have in a very long time.
When he's reading the letter from his wife about the dog.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But
I almost started crying.
Like I said, man, he's a good actor, and I'm glad that people are like, oh wait, they're watching it, kind of having that Keanu realization, like, what? Like, oh, okay.
Oh shit, this guy. Yeah,
He's good. And I've heard that they're working on a sequel or planning a sequel. I don't know if that's the case or not, but
it's been on track. I mean, because it was a fairly low budget film.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Now you actually saw another film in addition to
Yes.
all three of us seeing John Wick. You saw Fury.
I saw Fury. Yeah, it's a movie I've been wanting to see for a while now, and I gotta say it's one of the war movies in general tend to stick with you for a while.
Yeah.
And this is one that will stick with you for a while, and for a couple of reasons. And the first reason is it's a fantastic movie. It's one of the best movies I've seen all year, because I think the cast is the chemistry and the believability that this cast has been roaming, Europe and Africa for 4 years in this tank. You buy it, and all of the cast is top notch. All the performances are top notch. The action scenes, and they don't cut any corners or pull any punches. It is extremely violent. Within the first 5 minutes of the movie, you're seeing some stuff that's just super hardcore violent, and I think a lot of the audience members weren't ready for it.
I feel based on what I've heard, it's like really brutal.
It's absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
And to its credit and to its power, some of the most brutal stuff is dialogue. That's not even violence. Of course, the violence is very, very visceral and in your face, and they don't, like I said, they don't shy away from anything in this movie.
And it's not a movie that glorifies war.
Absolutely not. If anything, it shows how beaten down these men are, because you see basically Logan Lerman, is it Logan Lerman? Lerman, who kind of has that innocent quality. He was so perfect in Perks of Being a Wallflower. That when you see him, he represents this guy. He's been 8 weeks in the military, was never trained to be a guy in a tank. And you see him get beat down quick, and they make him do horrible things really quick. And they, you're kind of the audience. The audience is kind of Logan Lerman in this movie. You're put into this role, and for a bit you're like, are any of these guys good? Like, because there's
is there any hero?
Is there any hero? Yes.
Okay. It's Logan Lerman.
Yeah, but I gotta say, the best performance of the whole movie, and one of the best performances of the year for me. Like, I'm putting up there with Andy Serkis in Dawn of Planet of the Apes, which is still my favorite of the year. Is
Dawn of the Rise of the Battle of the Planet of the Apes.
Yes.
By
Is
John Carpenter.
the man, the myth, and I'm not famous anymore, legend, Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf's the best part of the movie. He is astounding in this movie.
Better than Brad Pitt.
Yes.
His best role since Constantine?
Yes, because Constantine is his best role as Chaz. But we're going back to being serious for a second. He's phenomenal in it. An absolute joy to watch. I mean, because his character, I don't know if everyone would agree with me, because a lot of people would say, Logan Lerman is the heartbeat of the movie, but Shia's got this thing because he's the guy. I think his nickname's Bible in the movie, quoting chapter and verse and giving soldiers last rites on the battlefield. But I was just astounded by his performance, and it's not a performance that's loud. It's not a performance that's in your face. It's not a performance that delivers huge, crazy monologues either. It's a performance that just you just buy it, and you don't see Shia LaBeouf on the screen. You're never watching it going, that's Shia LaBeouf. And he is famous enough now where that's the case in almost all the movies I've ever seen him in. He is so fantastic in this movie. I can't express it enough.
Well, I haven't seen the film, but I've done some research or read up on it at the very least. Shia LaBeouf took it so seriously that during the entire principal photography, he pulled out one of his own teeth, and he refused to shower.
Yeah,
to kind of get in that headspace of like this guy that was stuck in a tank for God knows how many weeks or months.
I hope he himself was the one that actually took the tooth out. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah,
but the thing is, there's one real tank. I mean, there's tanks, against tanks in the movie, but there's one actual real 3-on-1 tank battle, 3 U.S. versus 1 German tank, where they're actually chasing each other, going in circles, or trying to get around to shoot behind the tank at its weak point. And it was one of those scenes that I didn't realize it until the scene was over, that I was leaned back as far as I could in my chair, and my fingers were dug into my legs because it was one of the most stressful, intense moments I've seen in a movie this year. But really, it's a movie that'll stick with you for a while. It doesn't glorify war, and because these war movies, it can be a really sensitive subject sometimes because it's something that you should take sacred and serious because it's something that happened, and I think it's something that you can't shy away. If you're going to do it, you can't shy away from it because that would be a disservice to it.
Like I know you and I were talking about this earlier today. Like it's appreciating war film, particularly very visceral war film, is always kind of a complicated thing, right?
Yes.
Because people have actually lived it.
Yes.
Like, for example, I really enjoy Ridley Scott's Black Hawk Down, which is really weird because, one, that's an actual historical event that took place while I was alive.
Yeah.
And, Jake, your family actually knows family involved in that event, right?
Yeah, I mean, not to go into great detail, but family member, my dad was involved with some of the planning and just was, in the military at the time and had friends who were called over there afterwards as kind of like a response to it. And it was a very real thing in the household when it happened. And it's a movie that, Sam and I were saying, it's tough to say, I love this movie because it's not like a John Wick movie. You know what I mean? It's something that demands respect.
Mm-hmm.
These war movies demand respect, and I think what David Ayers did with Fury is he gave it respect.
Yeah.
And it's a movie that I hope you guys check out. I think you'd really appreciate it.
Sure.
But like I said, everyone's top notch. Brad Pitt, he's amazing because he's one of the biggest stars in the world. But yet you can watch that movie and not see Brad Pitt. As much as I love Tom Cruise, I have a hard time not seeing Tom Cruise in movies. You know what I mean? And I love Tom Cruise. But Brad Pitt, he disappears into the role, and you get this, and you buy the leadership from him from the get-go. You buy that every guy that comes into contact with Brad Pitt in that movie respects this character that he's playing. And I think a lot of that works too because he is Brad Pitt. He's the longevity he's had in his career, and it's.
He's in his 50s too.
Yeah, and someone was saying, it feels like a companion piece, kind of the armored side of with Saving Private Ryan, just dealing with
Though they're sorry, I coughed in the mic.
Right when you leaned up to it, too.
Yeah, I know. It's like
as if you intended to cough into the mic.
God, dickish reflexes. The yeah, but in terms of Saving Private Ryan, I feel like Saving Private Ryan is more stylized than Fury. Fury is very down in the muck. And
the thing about Fury, that's a good point. There's not these shots where it's camera tricks and it's not zoom-ins and reaction shots,
slow motion like John Williams. And
you know what? I can't say for sure, but it feels like every war movie has that sound, that ringing in your ears and the slow mo.
Tinnitus almost.
Yeah, I could be wrong. It's been a couple of days or close to a week since I've seen it, but I can't remember that shot being in there. And they're in tanks, which if anything that's going to happen, then you're going to
So it has a more claustrophobic feel.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
kind of like Das Boot.
When I was watching it, I was glad that in Das Boot they film in a submarine, in a U-boat. You know,
Yeah.
they don't
For 3 hours.
Yeah, they don't do that thing where it's like on a set and you have room and they just kind of make it look like it. Like they film in a tank. It's not like half a tank cut out. I mean, they're in there.
And apparently David Ayers made them spend a lot of their free time in the tank, so they would get that feeling, that claustrophobia, and also having to share that confined to space with each other.
Yeah, and it pays off. And one of the best lines that representing that in the movie is when Brad Pitt was talking about the tank, and it just I don't want to give anything away, but they're just talking about the tank, and Brad Pitt kind of looks at it and he's like, no, this is my home. This is my home for 4 years. You don't leave this tank. This is my home. And it's just I give it as high a praise as I can, and I really think you should check it out. It's a movie that's it was a $5 Wednesday, but no one really sits in the front section anymore. But it was packed. People are still seeing it. Weeks after release, and it's getting good reviews because it should. And I definitely say check it out.
Yeah, well, have to give it the old go. Yeah, that is something interesting about war films, because even Saving Private Ryan, outside of the Omaha Beach sequence, is largely, there is a lot of style and there's a lot of and Saving Private Ryan, I feel, set the stage for every single World War II film that came after it.
Absolutely.
The influence of it, and you can see it like in the Call of Duty games back when Call of Duty was a World War II fighter instead of a modern. How weird is it? And this has always kind of bothered me that there are war shooters that take place during current conflicts.
Yeah.
I always felt weirded out by that.
Yeah.
It's like when Medal of Honor had that ran into that controversy where you could be the United States forces or you could be like the Taliban. It's like that's kind of like there's people there fucking now.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Yeah. That always kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
And stuff, and it gets to the point where it's like blurring lines. Like if you picked up the special edition of Modern Warfare 2, like the super $100 version or so, it came with a drone.
I mean, to be fair, the name is Modern Warfare.
It is, but I mean...
But I agree.
Yeah.
I'm just,
On a conceptual level, though, yeah, it's just odd to me. Like, and yeah, that it comes with, like, functional night vision goggles, or it comes with, like, a fucking drone. It's like, why? What are we... Like, nice. Yeah.
Sorry, I just showed him a picture. Don't worry about me.
All it took was Ace Frehley. Is it Ace Frehley or Ace Frehley?
Ever since when I was a kid, it was always Ace Frehley, but it's Ace Frehley. It's Ace
Frey.
I've always heard Frehley.
The Frey.
That's how I've heard him pronounce it. I've heard the other guys in Kiss pronounce it that way.
They would know.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So.
Unless they've been all mispronounced.
I mean, I go based on Rivers Cuomo.
Yeah, from In the Garage.
Yeah. I've got Ace Frehley.
Yeah.
I've got Peter Criss.
Yeah. Well, then he'd be wrong.
Yeah. The first song he learned to play on the guitar was Cold Gin.
That's not to talk about Kiss, but
not that we needed the segue.
That was the riff breakdown in Cold Gin was one of those moments sitting on my bed listening to the cassette of Greatest Kiss and hearing the breakdown riff. Na 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 na. Like that, it came out of nowhere and it absolutely floored me. And that's still like I still love listening to that and waiting for that riff. That was the moment I truly fell in love with Kiss. Cold Gin, totally.
You and Rivers Cuomo could talk up a storm.
We probably could. Then we jam on it.
Yeah. Nothing about Weezer. You wouldn't be like, hey, I really like Pinkerton. You'd be like,
we'd get to Pinkerton. That's my favorite Weezer
Pinkerton
album.
was really underappreciated for those 20 years.
Yeah, well, he hated Pinkerton.
Yeah,
from what I understand.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we've had this conversation on the podcast before, but he basically said it was like waking up after being really drunk at a party and where you like told everyone all your feelings and then realizing, oh shit, I released that on an album
that's been bought by millions.
Yes, and everyone's gonna hear it. So I think and it couldn't have sounded more different than the Blue Album.
Yeah, it was a complete departure, which is probably why it wasn't as warmly received when it was first released.
Yes, a lot of feedback, a lot of like it just sounds,
raw.
Yeah, really raw.
Yeah. Kind of like how Nirvana went really raw for In Utero.
In Utero is my favorite Nirvana album.
It is mine too. I always felt that, and I feel like they feel that way, that Nirvana was uncomfortable. Next time I meet Dave Grohl, I'll ask him. I always felt that they felt that Nevermind was too polished.
Yeah,
for their sound.
That always kind of like bugged me, like how I don't know. I've only like read some stuff about like Kurt Cobain that he wanted to distance himself from it and this and that because it sounded too good. I hope that's not true. I mean, I hope like in their hearts they really did love that album and it wasn't just like it sounded too clean because that wasn't the cool thing to do. You got to wonder like if after In Utero if they would have released another album. Do they go darker, or do they kind of look back fondly on Nevermind and decide to maybe go a little bit more like Heart-Shaped Box?
Yeah, I like to think they would have hit a middle ground. I mean, who knows? That's another question for the...
I mean, a lot of the like demos and stuff like that have been released of like things that Kurt had been working on kind of do sound a bit grungier.
Really?
Yeah. But that might just be because they're demos and they hadn't been, tweaked or edited.
Yeah.
I remember talking about In Utero with a friend or writing something about it. And I think one of the reasons when I was younger I wasn't big into Nirvana is I always felt that Kurt wasn't enjoying it. And when I heard In Utero, even though sounds like a painful album, like, obviously the topics and stuff, it sounded like he was having fun in Nirvana again.
It was like it was more him.
Yeah, it sounded like they were a garage band again, like they were having fun with it, and it's just a kick ass. I mean, I love Nevermind too,
sure, yeah.
And Bleach, but like,
yeah,
In Utero is such a kick ass album, like just raw and in your face, and
Yeah.
and just the screaming he does on some of that stuff. I mean, Milk It is like one of the craziest. That was my ringtone for a while, and I loved when people would call me because it's just the chorus of him screaming,
Yeah.
kind of nonsense.
Rape Me, of course, is like, I feel like one of the most raw, honest
Yeah.
songs on the record, where he feels like he's like, being taken advantage of or commercialized. He's
Yeah.
just like, by the end of the track, he's just screaming.
Oh, I mean, I always said it sounded like you could hear his vocal cords tearing at the end of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
No
going
one
all
can-
full
yeah.
out.
Almost like he was ready to never sing again.
Yeah. No one can do Nirvana justice vocal wise. I don't think.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I remember someone did on they did Smells Like Teen Spirit on American Idol,
Of course they did.
and I was like, it wasn't like, oh, fuck you for using but it's like, dude, I mean, no one can recreate that voice.
Yeah.
It's this scream that just can't be recreated.
Yeah, it's
Also,
the kind of voice that sounds like you've smoked half a pack of cigarettes.
how do you guys feel about?
Oddly enough, I feel like Dave Grohl is like.
Well, Dave Grohl
is
got
really
a hell
good.
of a screaming voice.
Is really good at coming close to it.
Yeah.
Because I've tried to do some Foo Fighters at karaoke before, and I'm just like, nope, I can't do this.
I can only do the more melodic songs.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
like
Learn
my
to
favorite
Fly.
my favorite Foo
That's the one.
Fighters song is Walk, and because
yeah.
for me that's the album that got me back into Foo Fighters, the Wasting Light album, and that song.
It had been like a 3-year break, to be fair.
But I mean, like, I never was like super into Foo Fighters. I've always knew their singles, saw the videos that were great and funny on VH1, but I heard Walk, especially off that album, and that again sounded like a song where Dave Grohl found a new respect for life, where there's that great moment where again he's screaming at the end of that song, and it's like they always say like one of the only constants in life is death, which is to sound like a bummer, and he is screaming in the face of death, like resisting, like, I'm never gonna die, you're never gonna take this away from me, and I'm gonna dance on my own grave, like because he found this part of his life.
Yeah, and if you think about the album as a whole, Wasting Light, the entire album as a whole is really about those themes are about death, mortality, kind of like facing an uncertain future. The opening lines of Wasting Light from the song Bridges Burning is, "These are my famous last words," which he screams into the mic. It's great.
Yes.
Walk is the last track on the studio album.
Mhm.
Like, there's the deluxe version with other stuff. But like the actual like regular album release, the last track is Walk, where he's like just he's figured out that how much he loves life.
Yeah.
And the idea Walk, he got that idea from watching his daughter learn how to walk, and then he was like that struck a chord with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that album is fantastic.
The defiance in his voice in that song, To Death, which he's sung about so much, like on what's the double album?
In
which
Your
is
Honor?
like, In Your Honor is like obsessed with death, and this is just him finally like, in your face.
Whereas my favorite song by the Foo is "Come Back." It's the last song off of One by One. And like it has some like great harmonies with the guitars and stuff like that, and it feels like it's all about like accepting that you're gonna fail, but being like literally saying, but I'm gonna come back.
It's interesting because that album almost broke up the band.
Yeah.
Like, that's an album where they it was a Growing Pains albm.
And it's the album that they recorded here in Northern Virginia.
The last one, yeah.
And they and isn't it the one that they got a Grammy for, even though they did it like basically in his garage?
Yeah, and where did they? He used to have his
It's Alexandria.
Yeah, right in that area, which is where they also recorded my favorite album they ever have done so far, because I haven't listened to all their new album. But I will say,
now who's got the weird hiccup thingy?
Yeah, but I kind of like back away from the mic so you don't
Instead
hear
of me going,
just I'm looking at the levels of that little little breakdown.
Terrible.
But sorry guys. My favorite album.
We've been pretty calm with our levels so far this entire. I haven't had to be like, oh man,
damn it, Sam, stop
but
popping.
Now, right there, both of us popped. Though, so it's it's
pop
both,
the magic.
we
But
were popping
and locking. My favorite Foo Fighters album is "There's Nothing Left to Lose," which is their third album. They recorded that as a 3-piece band because they had just lost they had just fired, not lost, they knew exactly where he was. They had just fired their second rhythm guitarist, or lead guitarist, Franz Stahl, who had been a childhood friend of Dave Grohl's. And so they recorded that as a 3-piece band in Alexandria. That's got Learn to Fly, Breakout, Stacked Actors.
Arguably their breakout hit album.
Yeah, it's one of the
most people if they heard about Foo Fighters within their first 10 years of being out, knew about them because of Learn to Fly.
Yeah, it's between that and Everlong, I feel, is like the big early Foo.
I think Everlong was the first song I had ever heard of theirs.
It was either Everlong or Monkey Wrench.
Oh, yeah. You want to talk about a scream.
Oh, yeah.
Monkey Wrench.
Oh, my God.
Will give you some goosebumps and put some hair in your chest.
Yeah.
Just my dad would love it.
Yeah. because
he has a hairy chest.
He does, and he always encouraged me and my sister
to get a hairy
to
chest.
eat food because it would put hair on our chest. But that's my.
Just imagine Anne with a hairy chest. That'd be weird.
Why'd you put that visual in me?
Because I'm a terrible friend.
Putting in the weird subliminal images, but that album's like their most melodic. Because, I mean, I'm a sucker for melody. When it comes down to it, like my favorite Red Hot Chili Peppers album is By the Way, because that's them at their most melodic.
I was listening to that album a lot this week. Actually.
Yeah. So. There's Nothing Left to Lose is all about kind of... over the course of the previous album, you're getting a full-on Foo Fighters history today, guys. You guys are fucking lucky. Unless you hate the Foo Fighters, in which case, sorry.
Fuck you. I mean, this is all because we love Sonic Highways.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't been watching, you should.
And the new album comes out in like the next week or so.
Yeah. So probably pick that up because I'm sure it'll be good.
So far, the
first 3 tracks that they've shown on the show have been amazing.
Yeah,
I love them.
Fucking phenomenal, really.
This is gearing up to be one of my more favorite Foo Fighters albums.
Yeah, only 8 tracks too. It's their shortest. But the previous album, The Color and the Shape, which has Everlong and Monkey Wrench and Hey Johnny Park and My Hero, was written in the midst of Dave Grohl's divorce from his first wife. So I always kind of looked at that album, if you look at it thematically, it's kind of an album about the creation and dissolution of a romantic relationship. I always liked how you get to There's Nothing Left to Lose, the subsequent album, and it's about being able to kind of get out there and find your place in the world and how to love again. I mean, they've Stacked Actors is about hating your environment and loving hating it. And then you go to Breakout, which is kind of about dealing with that nervousness again. And then the third track, Learn to Fly, is about learning to get back into that sort of thing. I love that shit. It's great. Like it's one of my favorite albums of all time. Certainly my favorite Foo Fighters album. One of my favorite albums from the '90s. But it is phenomenal.
Also, Learn to Fly, my mom's favorite Foo Fighters song.
Ironically enough, Dave Grohl considers that, like, they'll play it every show because it's one of their big hits.
Yeah, because they know it'll get the asses dancing.
Yeah. He, a man after my own heart. It's one of his least favorite Foo Fighters tracks.
Yeah, probably because, I imagine half of it is probably because he has to play it all the time.
That, and he feels like it's kind of just like a made-to-order song.
It totally does feel like, oh, this'll get it on the charts.
Yeah,
this'll get some spins on the radio.
Kind of like, now I know you guys are like the biggest Blink-182 fans in the whole wide world.
I mean, I think the phrase probably better just not as big fan as you.
Well,
because the way that you said it,
I'm not a fan.
Yeah. What I'm saying is I don't hate them.
Yeah.
So don't lump me into the same group as Mr. Haty Pants here.
So you're the middle ground.
Yeah.
You are
literally. I am the bridge betwixt you two.
They're all right, but I don't hate them.
love Travis Barker, the drummer.
One of the best drummers in rock.
Yeah, I will sit through any terrible band that he's in just because I enjoy listening to him play the drums.
Yeah, full disclosure.
Not to say Blink-182 is a terrible band. I'm just saying, I've listened to several of the bands that he's played for just because he played for.
I mean, the band members themselves will agree. He is the most talented musician of the bunch.
And they lucked out because it was one of those, that thing you do kind of moments where he was just filling in for the drummer.
Yeah,
they kept him.
They had fired their original drummer, Scott Rayner, for showing up drunk and sloppy to all their tour dates, and they were touring with the Aquabats. At the time, Travis Barker was the drummer for the Aquabats, and so in an hour and a half, he learned their entire set list and kicked ass. And they were just like, and after the first show, they were just like, "Hey, do you want to join us?" Which to which I have to posit, how did the rest of the Aquabats feel? Like they've just swiped his drummer that while touring in support for Blink-182, but yeah, that's when the band really takes off, because after that they released Enema of the State, which has What's My Age Again and all the small things and
Adam's Song.
But to get to the point I was making, so yeah, Dave Grohl hates Learn to Fly or doesn't hate, but it's one of his least favorite tracks. Maybe he does hate it. Who knows? Another question for him. The as if I'm ever going to meet him again, and as if he's ever
on the 11th.
On the 11th, that's right. Dave Grohl's going to be in DC again. So
you could have gone to that secret show at Black Cat.
I might have been able to, but probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
So Dave Grohl is not a fan of Learn to Fly because he feels it was made to order. When they were recording their follow-up to Enema of the State, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, one of my favorite album titles, because if you say it out loud, you realize...
We get it.
Yeah, we got it. We got it, Sam.
The
Blink-182 is immature.
Honestly, a lot of my dick jokes and that sort of thing that I've been when I say cock my balls and stuff like that, that really comes from their stage banner. You listen to their stage banner, it's like, oh, okay, I get it now.
That's a really nice circumcision. Where'd you get that done?
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah.
I forget what song it was off of, but I have a live recording of them doing a song, and during the they kind of just fade out while they're playing, and Tom and Mark are talking back and forth, and they're just I think they did a cover of Dancing with Myself, and I think it's just Mark just kind of starts talking like he's talking to someone off stage or something like that,
yeah.
And he's like, oh, that's really nice circumcision. Where'd you get that done?
It sounds exactly they have an entire song. They have a song called "When You Fucked Grandpa." Oh, that was a bonus track. But
I've always enjoyed my sister way back in the day. My older sister Allison had this compilation CD called "Short Songs for Short People," which was really funny because all of us are giants in my family. So it's funny that she has this song. But all the songs were 30 seconds or less or fewer. I'm just going to edit that part out where I said less. And then now I've ruined it. So all the songs are less than 30 seconds. And Blink-182 had this song, which I have since heard, and there's a longer version of it that maybe they do live or something like that. But it's literally just them going, shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, tits, fart, turner, and twat.
Yeah, it's on their live album.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's called. The name of the song is Family Reunion.
Yeah. And they and they just, I think they run through that 4 times.
Yeah. And then the closing lines, "I fucked your mom."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you listen closely on this version, I don't know about any other versions, but you can hear one of them going "I wanna fuck my dad and my mommy too." Oh shit, is this thing on? Which just always cracked me up. It's a filthy song, and my parents would have shit bricks if they had heard me and my older sister listening to it back when we were 12.
I love that.
And then we would have been like, "Really, Dad? Have you heard what you say?"
When they were starting,
he swears a lot.
Yeah, when they had released their first serious album, the self-titled album, which has no joke songs, they would start the set with Family Reunion to kind of reassure the fans that even though they had put out an album with nothing but serious material, they were still the same old Blink-182. They're like, it's cool, guys. We can still have a song that's nothing but cuss words. But to get back to the point I was making, so Dave Grohl.
So Dave Grohl.
So Dave Grohl.
So John Wick.
Yeah, not a fan of Learn to Fly because he feels it was made to order. When they were recording "Take Off Your Pants and Jacket," their manager was like, the album's kind of missing that, that feel-good Blink-182 summertime song. And they both, the bassist and a guitarist, Tom DeLonge and Mark Hoppus, who are also the principal songwriters, they got so pissed. They were like, okay, fuck you. You want us to make the most feel-good songs, the most poppy songs possible? Fine. We'll go ahead and do that. And they went home and they wrote First Date and The Rock Show. And those two songs happen to be the biggest songs on that album.
That always happens with every band, whether
the Beck's song, Loser.
I feel Loser.
That almost the exact same story. They were like, oh, you need to, it was when, rap and hip-hop were starting to become prevalent. They were like, oh, Beck, why don't you try doing something like that? And he's like, fine, fuck this shit, and like, you know, like basically wrote a parody song that kind of has like a rappy feel to it, but still is within his wheelhouse. And now it is arguably the biggest song he's ever written. For the longest time, the only Beck song I ever knew.
I feel like "Come On, Feel the Noise" by Quiet Riot had that kind of origin.
Absolutely, they wanted to record the shittiest version of that song they could do, or shittiest cover. And same thing with "Pork and Beans" by Weezer.
That was a joke song too.
Yeah, they were like, all right, we don't really do this. So everyone shits on this, the big wigs, but how many songs have they inadvertently inspired? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Beatles hated 8 Days a Week, but it was a #1 single.
Yeah.
Though they still hated it, so they never played it live. They were just like, fuck it, we'll play "I Feel Fine" instead, which is another great track.
We'll do it live.
Yeah.
It's got the mistake in the beginning with the feedback.
Yeah,
you can hear them go, oh, screw up, like, oh,
yeah.
you know, when they hit the guitar and it goes,
But then, like, later, John Lennon was like, that's cool. We were one of the first major bands to use, like, feedback
yeah.
in a recorded track.
And now on the Chicago episode of Sonic Highways, they show the guys in Foo Fighters spending like 20 minutes trying to get it perfect in a song.
Perfect melodic feedback. When the first use of it was just an accident. They had left a guitar up against an amp.
Speaking of going back to Nirvana, they're one of the best bands to ever use feedback. Kurt Cobain could seamlessly
almost like
go
he
in and
knew
out
the
of
science.
feedback.
Like it was like he was playing notes that were just feedback.
I remember, I think it was Rolling Stone came out with like the 100 greatest guitarists list, and he was on it, and a lot of people got pissed off. And I think a lot of people thought that 100 greatest guitarists meant people who could shred.
Yeah, like best technical guitarist.
And what Kurt Cobain, while he's no technical guitarist, is he brought the simplistic part of playing guitar back, where it was the feedback. The solo in Smells Like Teen Spirit is just the vocal line, but there is this funk and this rawness that he brought back to playing guitar. And so it's not just about like being able to shred on the guitar or do this like brilliant solo. It's about what it means for the instrument. And what he did for the instrument was huge. It was paramount for bands that come, and
especially coming after all like the hair metal from the 80s.
I never liked Nirvana in high school, and now I love Nirvana now. I always joke that me becoming a big Nirvana fan when I was like 24, 25 was like going back to college in your 60s. You know, like I should have done it a long time ago, but I finally did it. And so that's kind of what it was like for Nirvana for me. Even back when I was in high school, one of the things I loved about Nirvana is they were the nail in the coffin of the cock rock and hair metal, because I can't stand that. I cannot stand that stuff.
You don't like butt metal?
But I don't know.
It's a reference to Steel Panther song.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They have a song called "Death to All Butt Metal."
Yeah,
and it's "Butt" with one T is the title of the song. But Sarah Silverman plays a character in the music video, and like at the end of it, she's like, "Yeah, no, I get it. Death to all butt metal."
Yeah.
As in two T's.
Yeah.
She shows up in an episode of Star Trek Voyager. I was so flabbergasted.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Insane. But
is she doing dick jokes?
No.
But hair metal's awful, and they really did it. And I remember, I think it was Alice Cooper was saying he heard Nirvana for the first time, or one of the hair metal guys, and it was like, shit, like that's it, because, and here what I was going to ask you guys earlier, your thoughts on the song "Smells Like Teen Spirit," because whenever I talk to people about it, they're like, "Oh man, that song's so overplayed. I can't listen to that song ever again." For me, that song never gets old, because I saw it as this anthem of here's all these kids who come out of the '80s when there was songs just about girls, money, doing whatever you want, no repercussions, just a lot of just shit coming out of the '80s in terms of hair metal.
Yeah, kind of embracing youth.
And
really.
Here's all these kids growing up, and they're coming out of the '80s where that music sucks. It's become a parody of itself, and they're going, "What now? Give us something."
Yeah, they're disillusioned.
We are waiting for you to give us the next thing, and hair metal didn't know what the fuck to do, because and here comes Nirvana, where they were those kids coming out of that era, and that line here we are and I entertain us. I love that line, because it's just they're give us what give us your best shot, and I think that song, and still to this day, is so insanely powerful.
I wish I was more cognizant of the zeitgeist when that song first hit, because certainly all of us were alive.
Yeah, but we were like not even 10.
Some,
Yeah.
from what I understand, it was like an overnight thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it had just struck
Yeah.
a chord so quickly.
I've often looked back and been like, man, I wish I had just been like 5 years older, because like it wasn't until like everyone started going nuts about Kurt Cobain having died that I really started on my path to like musical appreciation.
Yeah.
Like that's almost at the same time I almost feel like maybe things would have been completely different had that not been kind of like the thing, because I feel like that almost was the event that got me like into more music, like because before then it was really just Weird Al, the Michael Jackson and Raffi. Not to say that I was listening to Raffi in the early 90s, because at the time I was when Kurt Cobain died, I was about 9 years old. So I had already passed on Raffi, even though for the next 10 years I would still think that he wrote Octopus's Garden, because it worked as a kid's song.
It fits in his repertoire.
Yeah, but I almost want to say, like, in elementary school, this is around like 3rd or 4th grade, like there were some kids who had like older siblings who were in their teens already, who had been fans of Nirvana, and they, because of their older siblings, had also been fans of Nirvana, and they were feeling the effects of Kurt Cobain having died, and like that was what kind of started making me aware of like music outside of the stuff that my parents were giving me.
Yeah.
And then oddly enough, within the next couple years, my mom got into like alternative rock, so she would play alternative rock in the car. So like I was listening to like Spin Doctors and I can't remember the other bands that she liked, but like bands like that when I was probably quote unquote too young to be listening to them.
Interesting. Would major labels have taken risks on bands like Green Day or The Offspring or Weezer, without Nirvana being around? That's one of those things. And it was really Green Day that kind of, because before I was listening to like Dookie, for me it was like the big early like rock.
Every kid I ever met around that time, whenever I talk to anyone, their first album is always Dookie. Like like everyone collectively bought Dookie on the same day. Like that just seems how it is.
If you want to feel better about that, I didn't own Dookie for several years after. Like I had started getting other Green Day albums and then went back to Dookie. If that makes you feel better. I'm different.
Okay.
Dare to be different.
I'm better than all of you people by being worse and not knowing who Green Day was.
My first Green Day album was Warning.
My first Green Day album was International Super Hits.
Dang.
It wasn't, but
yeah, I saw them on the International Super Hits tour.
As did I. I think.
With,
was that the one where they were with Blink-182?
We're at the Verizon Center?
Yeah.
I was at the same concert. Oh!
We were also both at the Foo Fighters
All three
show.
of us.
Yeah, at Verizon Center on
11/11. Yeah.
For the day that I was supposed to get married. For anyone keeping track. I think that's actually the first time that I've mentioned.
I don't think you ever mentioned that.
For anyone curious, I was engaged at a time, and that was supposed to be our wedding day. And instead, I went to see Foo Fighters because our engagement had broken up several months before.
Probably a better deal in the long run.
Right?
But
I much more enjoy that memory than the thought of being married.
Yeah. So, Green Day.
Sorry to bring it down.
No, it's all right. It's fine.
Dave Grohl.
Dave Grohl,
my musical icon.
Yeah, was not a fan of Learn to Fly because he felt it was made to order. How many times have I said that on this podcast?
5 times.
Yeah, at least 4 or 5.
Yeah, close to a half a dozen. But
hey, what are Dave Grohl's thoughts on Learn to Fly? I've always been curious.
He's not a fan. He felt it was made to order. But there's your half dozen. But I think
6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Yeah. But I'd grown up
dumb.
Yeah, I know. But I had grown up listening to a lot of the stuff that my dad was listening to, and my dad, of course, is a big fan of Roy Orbison, and thus, by extension, a big fan of the Traveling Wilburys. and he's a fan of all the Traveling Wilburys solo stuff, so that being like Bob Dylan, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and George Harrison's work, particularly with the Beatles. I was actually listening to the Traveling Wilburys before I was listening to the Beatles.
Yeah. And Jeff Lynne.
Yeah, I didn't listen.
He's the unsung hero, man.
We didn't listen to a lot of ELO.
Jeff Lynne.
I like ELO.
Yeah.
We just didn't, for whatever reason, he didn't really have any electric light orchestra.
My first exposure to ELO was Xanadu, the
Oh,
movie that
yeah,
they
yeah.
did the music for.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Or I
for-
guess the musical that they did the music for.
Yeah, the little known, if Grease is what launched Olivia Newton-John's acting career, it was
Xanadu is what killed it.
Yeah. Damn.
It was a big thing when I was working at Blockbuster,
Mhm.
and if you ever talk to Chad about it, he'd probably be able to reflect on it as well, Jake. One of our coworkers, actually a couple of our coworkers were like, "Oh my God, Xanadu!" Like it was a huge thing for them.
Really?
Yeah, not because they liked it, but because it was just
What it symbolized.
I think my first...
Exactly. And one of our managers at the time got transferred to another store and became like the store manager.
Uh-huh.
And he called us up and was like, the first thing I did when I moved to this new store was ordered Xanadu because Susan, the store manager of our store.
Are you talking about Ryan?
No.
Okay, it wasn't Ryan. Okay.
No. I can't remember his name. I mean, he moved to a different store while I was still working there,
Okay.
so you never worked with him.
Oh, okay.
But Susan, the store manager of our store, would not let us order it.
Really?
Yeah, because she's like, no, you two are the only people that want to see it.
That's hilarious.
So we're not going to make any money off of it.
Yeah.
And she's right.
Yeah. Smart woman.
Yeah.
Um,
Because it's a terrible movie. I mean, it's a great movie. I highly recommend seeing it, but don't expect it to be good.
I think one of my first exposures to ELO was when I saw Boogie Nights as a kid.
That's probably a good thing to watch.
And the end of that movie, you get It's a Living Thing, I think, as Mark Wahlberg pulls out his giant penis. Yes, It's a
How
Living
fitting.
Thing.
That
Yes,
fits,
when he
yeah.
pulls out his 13-inch member.
Fits fitting.
And originally, Paul Thomas Anderson
a living
asked. That's such a great movie. That really is that's a top 10 movie for me, easy. But Paul Thomas Anderson had to ask Jeff Lynne for permission, and Jeff Lynne's like, "All right, well, let me watch the movie." And Paul Thomas Anderson was like, "Oh shit!" Like the cue for him, the beginning of "It's a Living Thing" is Mark Wahlberg pulling out his giant fake dick, and so they sat and they watched the movie. The movie ended, and Jeff Lynne turned to Paul Thomas Anderson, and he was like, "You can use any of my songs for any of your movies forever." Like he loved it. He loved everything about it. And so that was when, maybe not the first time I heard ELO. I mean, Mr. Blue Sky, of course, and Don't Let Me Down, all that kind of stuff. Which he's not saying Bruce, by the way, in that song. But but he says it live now because it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, ELO, man. Fucking love ELO.
yeah.
ELO.
So yeah,
ELO.
that's the one band from the Traveling Wilburys that my dad didn't introduce us to.
And that's why we went on a 5-minute tirade about it.
You needed to get some props.
Yeah. I like the band just fine, but yeah. So up until that point, I was listening to Roy Orbison, Traveling Wilburys, the Beatles, the Doors, the Beach Boys, and I remember when I started. So I listened to obviously Green Day a little before middle school because Dookie was such a big, massive thing. But the yeah, you like me calling Dookie a big, massive thing. And anyway, so I remember when I started 7th grade, that's when you're listening to contemporary music because everybody else is listening to contemporary music. And when I was in 7th grade, everything was big and heavy and angry rap rock. So a lot of Korn, a lot of Deftones, a lot of Limp Bizkit, a lot of Godsmack. That was, Disturbed. That was all the big stuff. And so, I still have a healthy appreciation for that. But when I heard, and I remember I was in keyboarding class and we weren't allowed to watch videos, but we watched videos anyway. The girl next to me played What's My Age Again by Blink-182, and it sounded like a breath of fresh fucking air compared to everything else,
So she's the one responsible.
A breath of fresh ass.
Yes, to quote Wild Wild West.
Which everyone should.
Yes, I'll keep abreast of the situation. The that's not. Is that?
No, it's not.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that movie that much.
It's a breath of fresh ass, a breast of fresh air, and we need to get some shut ass.
Right.
The fuck are we talking about?
I don't know what a shut ass, if shut ass is the goal. But
we all know about Sam and his love or his hatred of shut asses.
We do. But yeah, hearing stuff like "What's My Age Again" and all the small things was what I was, again, sucker for a melody. Even though Fred Durst is saying "check out my melody" and "Rearranged," which, to be fair, is my favorite Limp Bizkit song because it's the most melodic Limp Bizkit
Sorry,
song.
which one?
"Rearrange."
Oh, okay.
Off Significant Other. It was
nothing off of Chocolate Starfish and the hot dog flavored water.
I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard "Rollin'." I remember at all the middle school dances, they would always play "Rollin'," and the dudes would.
They'd also play "Faith." I remember they played "Faith" at a middle school
They
dance.
didn't play that one at ours.
Yeah.
That must have been terrible.
Yes. It was.
But yeah, hearing Blink-182. After that, it was Point of No Return. I've seen Blink 6 times live. I don't know how many times. Like, what is the ensemble you've seen the most live? But for me, it's
oddly enough. I was thinking that it would be a good time to interject this. I mean, I love concerts, but I don't go to that many. Mm-hmm. There's only been one musical act that I have seen more than one time, and you were with me for one, and we were there together for the other.
Yeah,
it was Andrew WK.
That's right.
Although technically, I could argue that it still wasn't even like seen.
Sure.
Because the first time I saw him was the full band.
Full band.
When he was doing the I Get Wet
10th
reunion.
anniversary tour.
Second time it was just him and then like another dude.
A random dude with no instrument.
And like and it was just kind of like it was like a weird, almost like a performance art concert.
Yeah. The other dude was just dancing and sweaty.
Very awkwardly dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I aspire to dance like that. But yeah, meanwhile Andrew WK's got a keyboard, but that's
and half the concert was loops.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to say that I didn't enjoy it. It was still great.
Yeah. Any time with Andrew WK, and me and Chris have met the gentleman, is a good time.
Sam Stone got his first selfie with Andrew WK.
I do, and it sucks because I suck at taking pictures. Anyone who's seen it, maybe I'll send it to Chris so we can include it with the post. But yeah, it's fucking terrible.
Put it on our Instagram or something.
Yeah.
Which we have an Instagram.
Yeah, we do now.
It's Geek Out. I think it's Geek Out Show on Instagram.
We also did our second test live stream last night.
Oh yeah, on Twitch.
Yeah, on Twitch.
I mean, I wasn't there because I was at work. But,
yeah, that's Geek Out Show on Twitch, and me, Jake, and our buddy John, nondescript John, played Mario Party, the first Mario Party for the Nintendo 64, and talk about a nostalgic blast from the past. Because I remember playing that game when it first came out on the Nintendo 64 in 1998. And Jake almost won.
I almost won, and it was stolen from me again because they give those extra stars for trying hard at the end of the game.
Sucking the most penis, and of course, so John won.
Yeah,
I got fucked over hard in that game.
You did.
I did.
You got a star in the you got an extra star. What was the because they give like the 3 extra stars in the end.
3 extra stars. One for getting the most coins within mini games. One for getting the most coins. Period. So of course John got that one because he was like the coin fucking master. And one for landing on the most question mark spaces, which John got as well because he sacrificed himself to land on the question mark that one time.
Yeah,
that's probably what did it. Yeah.
He knew it. He was just playing it off like he didn't know.
Yeah.
He's a master at those games.
Stoic, yeah. I would love, and if you watch us on Twitch, and you probably didn't because we didn't have a low viewer count last night. We had a bigger one for Super Mario World. Everyone loves Super Mario World. But
that and also apparently John, nondescript John was telling me, apparently some bigger name on Twitch somehow found out that, that we were doing that first initial show and was like, well, I'm going to be signing out. Why don't you check out these guys? And like gave us a shout out and like a lot, like
42.
Most of the people that were viewing us were probably people that were coming on his recommendation.
That being said, before we got seated by that guy, we still had like a dozen viewers.
Yeah.
So we were still doing okay. No, not as many people dug the Mario Kart. Maybe we need the webcam for that so you can actually see our shining faces as we kick the shit out of each other in 64-bit form.
Yeah, I have plans for that.
So stay tuned, guys.
I gotta work with nondescript John because he's the one that knows how to work all that Twitch stuff.
Yep.
I know how to work camera stuff.
Yep.
He doesn't.
With their powers combined.
Yeah, we could make a proper Twitch account.
Dare I say it, take over the world. I don't even know what that sounds.
Neither do I.
But so that was would you say Nirvana was your major come to contemporary music moment then? If Blink-182 and Green Day was mine. What would you say was that moment where you're like, I'm not going to listen to what mommy and daddy listen to anymore. I'm going to listen to big boy music.
Oddly enough, it didn't end up being Nirvana. I did kind of like Jake. I didn't really get into Nirvana until even later. For me, it was about halfway through high school when they started releasing all of those demos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that was really when I got into Nirvana because oddly enough, that was also the same time that I was really getting into Foo Fighters, and I found out Dave Grohl used to drum for Nirvana, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm gonna check these guys out. It just so happened that Kurt Cobain's death kind of coincided with me starting to venture out and check out music. Oddly enough, actually, for me, it was finding Metallica's Black Album in my sister's room, and her letting me, borrow it and listen to it. That was really what got me into listening to my own kind of stuff, and like where I started. Like instead of just kind of being force-fed music by my parents, I was now seeking out things, still mostly going by like her suggestion. So for the first 5 or 10 years of me listening to quote unquote my own music, it was really my sister, telling me what's good, giving me the advice. But like saying that's arguably the same as like someone figuring out a genre that they like and then like reading like AP Magazine back in the 90s or or now like being on like some kind of like forum for that genre of music, being on YouTube searching music videos
like
and stuff like that.
on Vivo channels and stuff.
Yeah, like so it just so happened that we are blood related. As opposed to anonymous users.
Sure. Now,
but it stuck within that genre of like kind of like generalized metal. Like I never got into like specific genres per se. Like I enjoy thrash metal, I enjoy black metal, death metal, stuff like that. But it's like, but I never specified myself. Like I was just kind of like a student of metal, and I would jump around a lot. And
a disciple of the metal arts.
Exactly. And then like but I would still venture out too. Like I have a huge appreciation for punk, although no matter what I listen to, I do really really like a fine polished piece. Like one thing that always stopped me from getting into Nirvana was just how
abrasive,
to use their genre name, grungy it sounded like much like with the Misfits. I love the Misfits, but and I have a great appreciation for Danzig era Misfits, but if I'm going to listen to Misfits, I'm going to listen to Michael Graves' Misfits because it sounds like they actually did 2 takes.
Fair enough.
and it was more than 3 microphones.
Right. Wasn't recorded in a garage.
Yeah, exactly. Like I can appreciate music like that, but if I'm going to listen to more than one song in one sitting, I want something that sounds well produced. Like I don't like live albums for that same reason. Like if there are well done live albums. I'm not saying that all live albums suck, but like I need something that like they've put up egg crates, and I don't like hearing the audience singing along or clapping at the wrong tempo because there's no way to get a room full of people clapping on the right beat. Just or someone's voice cracking or forgetting lyrics.
I mean, it's pretty well established. A lot of my live albums have some post-recording doctoring done.
Yeah.
I mean, what would you say live is like? Paul Stanley's like 30, 70, 70s.
Well,
actually
it depends who you ask. It doesn't. I mean, for me, I don't care. It
Still
doesn't matter.
kick-ass
I mean,
album.
it's a kick-ass album.
Yeah.
You could joke it's the best studio album if you want to, because people,
sure.
Say that. But Paul Stanley's defense was, who wants to hear a out-of-tune guitar or a cracked vocal for all of eternity?
Who wants to hear?
They wanted to hear. They wanted to capture what it was like to be at a Kiss show, and they did that, and that's what saved their career as well.
So how did they record that? Like, was it an actual
No, I mean,
recording on tour? Or
they
they
just
just kind
two or
of
three
did like
shows.
they had some shows at Cobo Hall in Detroit, and they had multiple nights, and they put those together, and there's some segments that supposedly, if some people you ask, like none of the drum tracks are live, or something like that. You're never going to get a 100% answer from it, and to be fair, none of the Kiss members hide from it. They talk about it. They
not
tell
like
you.
they're like, no man, that was one show.
Yeah, I mean they tell
My
you,
half-assed
Paul.
my half-assed Paul Stanley.
But it's all over. It's all over the place with who you ask or how it was
What
done.
do the biographies say? Since you've read almost all of them,
Like I said, it depends who
It's
you
all
ask.
over.
It's all over
much
the place.
much like who named Kiss.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they all agree. Paul came up with it, but then it's who created the logo and this and that and blah blah blah. But
I think it should be named Kith.
it. I mean, I think for me, the band. I grew up with the Beatles. My grandfather really introduced me to the Beatles, and my mom enjoys the Beatles as
My
well.
grandfather is not a big fan of the Beatles and it's really as simple as my grandfather was a career guy for the CIA, 44 years with the CIA, height of the 13 days, Cuban Missile Crisis and all that. He hates the fact they put out a track called Back in the USSR.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
There you go. That's simple. My grandfather was at the airport when they landed, and he thought there was a bomb threat because everyone was screaming and running all over the place.
I do have to say, though, maybe hate's a little too harsh. He is not a fan of that track.
Mhm.
He did give me Help in a Hard Day's Night, on VHS when I was a kid.
Nice.
My mom is a huge Beatles fan. My dad says he is too, but my mom's always like, no, all this Beatles stuff is mine. He just likes the Beatles, but
He's a casual.
as if there's a competition for who's the
Yeah.
biggest Beatles
Yeah,
fan.
jeez.
My dad likes. My dad was the one who introduced me to Bruce Springsteen as a kid when I was 3. I mean, my dad grew up in Jersey,
Who will
so
also be on the mall.
that's right.
With Metallica and Dave Grohl.
And
Jesse J.
Get that domino after, yeah.
And he, with the Beatles, the only story he ever told me about the Beatles was he took the White Album at a party. Someone was playing it over and over again. He took it out of the stereo, and he put it in an oven on top of a chip bowl and melted it to form to the chip bowl. And they put chips in it because he's like, enough with this album. He's like, let's listen to something else. And
I think Sam just died a little bit.
That's my sister's favorite Beatles
yeah,
album.
my dad,
Your
my dad,
sister is part of the problem.
I don't think my dad
That's
was
right, Ann. I'm calling you out a lot on this show.
yeah. First you're accusing her of having a hairy chest, then you're like,
by the way, I tweeted her, and
She tweeted back.
She tweeted back. That would be awesome.
she had the hairy chest.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
I'm gonna get her a chest merkin for her next birthday,
anyway,
or maybe Christmas.
yeah, I think he kind of liked the Beatles, I guess, but he was always a Springsteen guy, and then he'd always tell me the greatest voice in the history of music is Roy Orbison and Jim Morrison.
So he would love talking with my dad.
Yeah, he would, and
my dad also loves the Doors and Roy Orbison.
he
They could
loves
have a Greg off, even though your dad's name isn't Greg.
It's Jack.
he loves the Traveling Wilburys, absolutely loves them, and I don't know, he's definitely the Springsteen guy all the time, and that's the big influence for me when I was a kid. And as I get older, yeah, Kiss was the band that I kind of branched out, and for me, my parents never were like, listen to this, listen to that, listen to this. Here's my record collection, here's my CD collection or tape collection. It was more of just I went and found whatever I liked, and it terrified my mom, but I really got into metal and Slayer. I remember buying.
What was the first real contemporary thing you got? Was it Slayer?
Contemporary?
Yeah, your moment, his Blink-182.
I know. I'm trying to think.
Metallica.
All throughout elementary school, middle school, and high school, I never listened. I never listened to DC 101. I don't have any stories about
or HFS.
No, none of that. I didn't.
HFS.
I didn't grow up going to any of the festivals. I don't like Green Day. I don't like Blink-182. I don't know. For contemporary, when a new Springsteen album came out, that's what I was listening to. I'm not one of those guys please don't get me wrong. I'm not one of those guys that's like, there's no such thing as good music out there nowadays because. Like,
I mean, it's
fucking
true.
newsflash. It's not because newsflash. It's never been easier to find music. It's never been
or
easier.
Make music.
So go, Spotify, iTunes. Go out there. You can discover a band in a weekend. Some people hate that, but whatever. I mean, you can go out there and you can find music. And a lot of people. It's funny. Gene Simmons has been in the news for saying rock and roll is dead, and Dave Grohl has been in the news for saying it's not dead. Well, this is gonna sound cliche as shit, but rock and roll can't die. It can't because
just like AC/DC would always say.
Yeah, I mean the thing about rock and roll is
the same thing.
the thing about rock and roll is it's forever there for us to listen to,
and it ain't noise pollution.
It's not, and God gave it to us too, and so I don't know. That always irks me when people are like, "Man, I grew up in the wrong era. Music nowadays sucks." It's like, no, fuck you. Go out and find a band. Go find.
I'm excited at the fact that there is more music out there than I can listen to in my entire life.
If you're saying I was born in the wrong era, I wish I was born in the '70s with Zeppelin. It's like, no. One, listen to Zeppelin. That's because rock and roll can't die. Go listen to it.
Nothing's stopping you from listening to Zeppelin right now.
Listening to Zeppelin. One of the things
Sorry, you can't see him live, but
But one of the things that always irked me about that too was people would be like, "Man, I wish Zeppelin would reunite and tour." It's like, okay, that would be cool, but why don't you go see a band on their prime right now?
Why don't you go see Les Zeppelin?
Yeah, but I mean, like,
I really want to see them.
I don't know why I'm
Heart
like
does a
talking
great
about
Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin all the time, but like,
oh my god, I saw Heart live a couple years
Zeppelin?
back. Yeah, they the things that are and should not be, or whatever the fucking title is.
Yeah,
That's the song that
off of Zeppelin too.
Yeah, and fucking dude, I forget her name, the singer, the
belts it
brunette.
out, yeah.
She kills it.
At
I arguably better.
At the Kennedy Center Honors Heart covers Stairway to Heaven, and it so well it puts Jimmy Page and Robert Plant to tears.
Yeah, they commend her for killing it.
Yeah.
My friend Robbie's going to be so glad that we talked about Heart, because Heart's a great show. I saw them when they were touring with Def Leppard, and I was super it was amazing. I was super excited to see Def Leppard, and I was like, Heart's going to be there. I've heard of them. But
Crazy in Love, or Crazy for On You, sure.
That was basically the only Heart song that I knew at the time because of Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a pretty good song. It's got a cool, guitar lick. And then seeing these, two old ladies, not to, shit on them because they're great. They're still great musicians. But seeing them come out,
ass,
seeing them come out and still rock like they're in their prime, I was jaw to the floor. They wiped the floor with Def Leppard, because Def Leppard was just kind of on their plateau that they've been on for the past 20 years. They didn't impress me because it was the exact same show that I've seen, in any documentary, the documentary that they put out 5 or 10 years ago that I saw. I was like, oh, okay, it's the exact same show. It's impressive that they're still doing it at their age, and that the drummer still only has one arm. That's he would grow it back or something like that.
Yeah.
But
we have the technology.
That's impressive in its own right, but but this was my first real exposure to Heart, and I was just like, fuck, that was a good show,
Yeah,
and
Heart's
then
a kick-ass band.
Yeah, and I wish I had listened to more beforehand.
But yeah, Zeppelin will always be around, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, yeah. I mean, they always will be, and of course, I would love to see Zeppelin live, but go out and see a band for $20 or $15 or whatever bucks, at 930 Club or Black
God,
Cat.
I wish I lived close to
you know what I mean?
Dude, we should try going to Jack's or something. Well, that's not Jack's
Empire.
anymore. Empire. Yeah.
The thing
I used to live across the street, and I never went there until I moved out here.
Also, I can't think of maybe
Could have seen Vanilla Ice.
the the breath of fresh air. Well, the breath of
Or,
fresh
sorry,
air
Rob
moment.
Van Winkle when he was metal.
Oh God,
New metal.
the breath of fresh air moment for me when I was younger, in middle school or high school, was when I heard Bullet Ride by In Flames, because I loved all the thrash metal from the the early 80s, mid 80s, the Big Four, all that kind of good stuff. And I heard Bullet Ride, and I was like, they're making metal like this still? It blew my mind. Also, but nowadays, I think more recent stuff, when I first heard the debut 21 Pilots album, I loved it. That was so cool.
When I first heard about 21 Pilots, I didn't want to like them because just based on the fan base that I was seeing, because I was like, these fucking like annoying little like high school bitches, like they're all into 21 Pilots. 21 Pilots gonna suck, and like I randomly like just saw like a clip of the dude drumming from 21 Pilots, and I was like, whoa,
Yeah, they put on like
I dig that, and I like watched a couple videos, and I'm like, okay, I can the genre of music I'm not super into, but this guy can drum. Like it's almost like a Travis Barker kind of moment where I'm like, I could probably put up with 21 Pilots just to enjoy this guy drumming.
Yeah.
BT Dubs, if anyone is still curious, yes, I am a drummer, and that's why I focus on drumming. So
I'm more of a guitar guy because
because you're a guitar guy.
Yeah, because I play guitar. So when I'm listening to like, I remember hearing the guitar riff from like, okay, let's talk about bands we're into now. You mentioned the 21 Pilots, so like when I heard,
cut him off. To be fair,
we did. We just, we shit over your. You want to finish talking about 21 Pilots before
I had that moment when I heard 21 Pilots for the first time, and it's funny. YouTube would always have this thing where it'd say. You should check out this. You should check out this.
Check out Phoenix,
and
Listomania.
Yeah, and everyone knows. I love.
Great track, by the way.
Yeah, it is, and I'm just like obsessed with masks for some reason. I'm just obsessed with masks. And
Eyes wide shut.
Yes, and I saw like they're wearing like ski masks in their live performance, and just two guys
ding,
like
ding.
yeah, exactly, yeah, it's perfect, and they're just like jumping around all over the place. And
I remember, wasn't that the key appeal, the initial hook for you when you got introduced to the Bloody Beetroots? It's like, oh, that dude wears a Venom mask.
Yeah, well, I trying to remember
that's why Jake loves Slipknot.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember why the Bloody Beetroots thing. I think I heard a track. No, I just saw it was like because Daft Punk's my favorite.
That and the fact that he did a collaboration with Paul McCartney on his last album.
Yeah. Well, Daft Punk is my favorite thing, the 21st like band or whatever you want to call it, the 21st century, and they're probably the biggest contemporary thing. I remember hearing like Discovery for the first time. And, and then
I would
hearing
call them a musical act.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a band.
An ensemble.
Yeah, they're a band. I mean.
Well, yeah. Well, what I'm saying is like when I think band, like when I get nitpicky about it, like when I think band, I go, guitar, drum,
listen
keyboard,
look at the robot rock music video.
Oh, yeah, no. But what they're doing is they're doing loops. Like I don't know what their recording process is like. Maybe they record actual instruments and then like they do the loops later.
Well,
but like their live shows, it's just them in front of like their little.
I feel like that's why they haven't toured in like 7 years.
Yeah, well, I think the big misconception about Daft Punk is that they're just touching buttons, and
they do really cool thing. Like I've seen like videos of their performances. Yeah, like I agree with what I think you're about to say. Like it's more than just them pushing buttons. Like they're actually like they're treating these mixers and loopers like they're real instruments, like they should be.
Yeah.
Like that was always one of my big things about like never wanting to go see like a DJ perform, like especially if I have to pay money. It's like I'm not going to pay money just to watch this guy put a record on and then step away and like just let it like I have iTunes to do that. But like I worked at a bar back a teen nightclub where we had a couple DJs, and I saw what they were doing, and like they're actually sitting there like mixing and organizing, and like the things that they had rehearsed, and like it wasn't just like spur of the moment like this song I feel like putting this song next, but like there's actual like thought going into it, and like they're fading into songs, and they got cues that like it actually meshes. Half the time you don't realize that the new song's playing until it's been playing for like a minute.
Yeah.
Like when you have a good DJ, when you have a good just a person who knows what they're really doing up there, like Daft Punk, like anything can still be beautiful music, even if like I know Daft Punk with like Discovery got into a lot of quote unquote trouble, and by trouble I mean a lot of people were bitching about it, not necessarily like they actually got into trouble, but like people were like, oh, all these songs are just like this song is just this song from the 70s, like a lot of like Motown and stuff like that. It's like they're just using they're just sampling. It's like, well, yeah, that's what the music style is. Like they sample and they make new songs out of stuff that already exists, and like they do it in such a way that it's its own like art form.
Well, here's the thing about Daft Punk real quick. Like, you want to hear, like, we're talking about live albums. Like, Alive 2007 is one of the best live albums I've ever heard.
Yeah,
and the thing is, when they perform live, they are creating a lot. They are creating an album in front of you. Like that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And also,
there's no song that sounds like it does on any of the albums that it was on previously.
And Discovery, yes, a lot of loops, a lot of samples, which is the point. Their latest album, their Emmy-winning album, Random Access Memories, has one sample on it.
Yeah.
Like it's a full band. Now, granted, they have a lot of studio musicians come in, but the thing they do, like what they did with the vocoder, like, you know, if you want to have like the timeline of the importance of a vocoder, like, you know, throughout history and music, Random Access Memories is a milestone because they changed the game with that. You know, they would spend days where all they were working with was what their right hand was doing with the vocoder, and then another day was just the left hand, like because it was so complicated. It's not as simple as just hitting the key and talking into a microphone and letting everything do the work for you. Like listen to that album as an electronic album, and like their growth is insane. Their first album, Homework, is called Homework because they recorded it in one of their bedrooms. Like they reignited, and at the same time
just sitting there
started
with like foam core versions of their masks.
Yeah, I mean, well, technically they didn't have they weren't the robots yet, but like they reinvigorated and basically created a genre in their bedroom, you know, and then they've just grown to this huge thing now. But so, you know, yes, Daft Punk is like the shit. Samuel, take it over.
Yeah, Sam, you haven't really talked for a while.
I was just gonna say, like, what are some of the more contemporary things? Like, what are you into these days? And you kind of touched on 21 Pilots and the Bloody Beetroots, and certainly, you know, Daft Punk. Like, what are some, like, for me, as again a guy that likes to play guitar and just loves the way that instrument fucking sounds, that and the piano, because that's God. Like, if there's one takeaway from this week's episode, it's like Sam has a hard on. Well, Sam always has a hard on, but Sam really
what's the hard on this week?
Melody, and so that's the piano and the guitar. That's what provides the melody.
You know, maybe you should play piano at a talent show.
And speak Spanish. That was always my my father, like whenever like church or whatever had like a talent show, he'd be like, "Oh, you should enter and play piano and speak Spanish." And it's like, Dad, I can do a lot more things than just.
No, son, that's all you're.
Yeah,
good at.
one, not to mention how incongruous. Like I'm playing like fucking like Beethoven's like Moonlight Sonata while like talking, like going through the Spanish alphabet, like La letra A es para el what's a word? Año, year, fuck. So anillo, nail. The yeah. So like when I
Donde
hear
está la biblioteca?
And I'm kind of in a period right now where I like stuff that's like really has a bit more of an indie flair to it. So I'll be listening to stuff like the Arctic Monkeys. They use guitar really well. Like hearing that song, like, you know, do I want to know, or whatever the name of that track is. That entire album is so fucking cool. Like when I hear you know, Japan Droid's album Celebration Rock is one of my favorite albums of the 21st century. Just really fast, you know, glad to be alive, like rock music. Like I hear that and I imagine like autumn nights like running through fucking like Brooklyn, which I've only done but so many times, but like it has that kind of vibe to it where it's just like, yeah, you know, it's just in your face and it's loud and it's fast and it's fun and it's full of melody and it's great. That's the kind of stuff that I'm listening to. This really, you know, like Blink-182 is a very electric guitar driven band. So is Green Day. So is, you know, the Beatles. I feel like George Harrison is really kind of undersold as a guitarist. You know, there's a lot of cool guitar stuff he does that I don't think he gets the kind of recognition he does. And Lennon would always say that he was kind of the invisible guitarist. He's like, you know, if George is the invisible singer, I'm the invisible guitarist because I do cool guitar stuff too. Like almost as like, hey guys, like I'm actually playing the instrument. But
was he?
It was
he?
He was usually rhythm guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul played some of the most famous solos. To
yeah,
be fair.
like the Taxman solo is a Paul
Good
McCartney
Morning,
solo.
Good Morning.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I almost like while you're talking about like what you're into contemporarily, I'm
and currently.
Sure. Currently, what you're into, I'm taxing my brain, trying to think of like what I'm into right now, because mostly I've been listening to like other podcasts, but like when I do listen to music, oddly enough, it's weirdly it almost feels like I'm like, especially after talking about like how I got started into music and the kind of music that I like, it almost feels like I'm betraying that, because lately I've been really into like girly pop music, like T Swift, my girl.
Oh yeah, T Swift 89.
I am so close to actually buying 1989 instead of just going to YouTube and listening to the like Shake It Off.
I got whatever the free track you could get on Starbucks was.
Yeah, and I might even go back and get the album that Trouble is off of too, because I for some reason I cannot get enough of T Swift, and I don't know why.
I've played Love Story at college open mic nights.
Yeah.
When I was in college, might I add. It'd be really weird if I just swung by random college open mic nights.
You mean like when you were down for homecoming?
No, it's
because that wasn't weird.
No, it's not, because there's like a whole. That's when all the alumni come down. It's an alumni event, so I'm hanging out with all the people I went to college with.
Touche.
Yeah.
I thought it was just like homecoming,
Oh yeah,
standard like high school homecoming or something like that.
Like I'm in the parade.
Like I'm not gonna go to Centerville's homecoming.
No, I've never been to a high school. I've never been to a high school event after finishing high school.
Yeah. I don't think I have either.
Unless you count my sister's graduation.
I do.
Okay.
So stop lying.
Did you go to your sister's graduation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll stop lying too.
Pair of liars here.
That's all I can think of right now for like current like
just pop.
Like stuff that's like new and fresh that I'm listening to, like things of that nature. I am still like hitting shuffle on my cell phone, which now has all of my music. Used to use my iPod, but my iPod died, so I'm using my. Not that you people care, but but yeah, I still hit shuffle on my cell phone every once in a while, and I get my old faithfuls: Megadeth, Manowar, Moon Hooch, who none of you know because they're a local band from New York, but I loved them. If you're ever in New York and you're in the subways and you hear like saxophones playing with a drum set, there's a very good chance that that's Moon Hooch. Check them out; they're great. Or search for them online. I know they have a Facebook page because I like it, but they do some amazing stuff. Like I hate the saxophone; it's probably my least favorite instrument, especially after living in Harlem underneath a guy who would practice saxophone at 1:30 in the morning.
God,
that's when he would start.
I would rather live with somebody that practices playing the didgeridoo.
Yeah, because at least that has the chance to lull you to sleep.
It does, with its soothing outback tones.
Yeah. So I hate the saxophone, and Moon Hooch is a 3-piece, 2 saxophones, and a drum set. But they are all 3 of them are great musicians. They're pretty politically active. Surprise, surprise, they're very liberal, and like they did a lot of stuff during Occupy Wall Street. And so if like you search for them on YouTube, a lot of their videos are live performances at Occupy Wall Street, which is fine. I'm not getting political here. Take what you will from Occupy Wall Street, whether you agree or disagree or don't know what they were fighting for. That music was good.
Yeah, there's your takeaway. But of course, like all that in contrast, I think the big thing I've been getting into lately also is Tegan and Sara.
Oh yeah,
I do love.
I remember I got into Tegan and Sara when they first hit the map with Speak Slow, and I've Been Walking with a Ghost.
Back when they were kind of just like more of an acoustic thing.
Yeah, and then watching the Lego Movie, I was like, I recognize this song. Like I feel like I've heard it before, or like I know who sings it, and then like the credits roll and they show that it that Everything Is Awesome was a Tegan and Sara song, and I'm like, no shit.
I mean, now they're
they're a very different band now than they were back then.
Yeah,
and I completely missed their evolution. I just went from like point A. I was at point B or point A, and then I just happened to find myself at point B, but I didn't follow their track.
If anything, you're at like point like S.
Because there were a couple stops on the way that they hit that I missed.
The thing is, like the first few albums, like for the first 5 years, they're like more of an acoustic, like stripped down indie rock thing. And you listen to the last album, and of course, Everything Is Awesome off the Lego Movie soundtrack. And it's like saying,
they're like an electro pop.
Yeah, it's like an 80s electro pop. Like,
and I love it.
Yeah, Fast As You Can, love living life song like Japandroids, except Japandroids is just a guitar and a drum. But like that kind of fast paced, kind of melodic awesomeness.
Actually, speaking of things of that nature, one of my friends did recently just show me this new band, quote unquote new band. I have no idea how new they are, but it's called Baby Metal. Apparently, they're like opening for Lady Gaga right now. But it's it's like a 6-piece band, I want to say, from like Japan, and it's a drummer, guitarist, bassist for sure. Maybe another guitarist too, but then like 3 female singers, and like they do this crazy combination of like your typical like high energy, cutesy Japanese pop, and like some fucking gnarly, bloodthirsty metal, and like they found just like this craziest way to mix them together, which is probably why I love them so much, since I'm, on my pop kick right now, and I have my roots in, metal. But like, it's ridiculous. And I'm so like, they have like 6 videos up on YouTube that I just watched for like an hour. Like I was just so into it. I was loving it.
Baby Metal?
Yeah. Baby Metal.
Baby Metal. Interesting.
Yeah. It's cute.
But yeah, Jake, I feel like you've been silent for a bit. Any
insights?
Well,
it's anything you've been listening to lately?
It's all been about electronic music. When I was younger, I didn't care about any of that kind of stuff. I wasn't a big fan of disco or electronic music in general. But I don't know. Everything electronic, and I love to just dive into a genre and explore all the crazy extremes and different eras and styles and attitudes in music, and electronic music is so cool. I don't know, the whole like anti-digital, anti-electronic thing is kind of useless to me because, what's the point of like not wanting to experiment more with music and keep moving forward? I don't understand it. But, I think the people who use auto-tune and electronic music as a crutch, don't worry about it because they're going to fade out. You know what I mean? Like they're not going to keep becoming a thing because sooner or later, even if they do have hits or whatever, they will fade out because they can't sustain it with using it as a crutch.
Ashley Simpson.
And that's a whole different thing. And but the bands that use auto-tune, I think Fun, I really like a lot.
Does it beautifully.
T-Pain. When they don't focus on it all the time, they use it like you do use distortion on a guitar,
like it's an instrument.
or an effect.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really cool. But Bloody Beetroots, they released an album called Hide a couple years ago that was phenomenal. I think it's a game changer for electronic music. Absolutely. Of course, Daft Punk. Cliff Martinez, who's done the soundtrack for Drive and Only God Forgives, has released some really cool, funky stuff. Some big synth things as
Trent
well.
Reznor?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I never really got too much in the Nine Inch Nails, but his soundtracks were phenomenal. Like you heard me freaking out about how awesome Gone Girl's soundtrack was.
Oh, and we reminisced on Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his stuff
the
too.
Fucking Immigrant song.
Yeah, very, very cool. But yeah, just anything electronic, And another thing, I always kind of stayed away from Skrillex because the whole dubstep thing. And then I heard his EP Bangarang, and I think that deserves to be up there with the best electronic stuff that's come out in the 21st century.
One cool thing that I heard about Skrillex back when like he was a big name, like not to say that he's not a celebrity or whatever still, but like back when he was like putting out an album with Korn and that shit, was it like every sound you hear on a Skrillex track is something he manufactured. Like he doesn't sample anything. He makes those sounds through some means of his own device, and like I think that's nuts right there. Like that's really cool. And so I have a lot of respect for him. I'm not crazy about that genre, but I'll tip my hat to him.
The thing about Skrillex is he's used dubstep to such a degree that when you hear any dubstep, you think it's Skrillex. That's the power of Skrillex. Now, granted, I bought his new album and I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I think Bangarang as an EP is a great example of why and how dubstep can work. But outside of that, I don't really Bloody Beetroot's Sir Bob kind of uses elements of dubstep in his new album, which I think is great. And kind of a brave thing to do for him because dubstep has this kind of sour taste to it that everyone doesn't like, and I think Sir Bob, who is the Bloody Beetroots, he made it really interesting and used it at perfect precision points throughout the album Hide. And again, he did, like Sam said, did a track with Paul McCartney, and really kind of cool. And yes, he does wear a symbiote Spider-Man mask, which is pretty awesome. And everyone always asks him about it whenever he's there. And he's like, I just made a decision to wear a Spider-Man mask once. That's just the way it is. And I think, Danger is another guy, too, who's done some really cool stuff. And, of course, Justice. Basically, if you're French, if you're Norwegian, you can play in a black metal band. You're just born, you can play in a black metal band. That's the way it is. If you're French, you can be an amazing electronic artist. Because you also got Kavinsky, who released an album a year ago, whose Nightcrawl was his big track from Drive that opens the movie. Actually, Guy-Man from Daft Punk helped produce it. So I've been all about electronic music and going back to disco, listening to Donna Summer. I never thought I'd say it, but I Feel Love is one of the sexiest, craziest, coolest synth songs you'll ever hear.
Have you heard the Blue Man Group cover of I Feel Love?
No.
It's pretty good.
Nice.
They did it with
I saw them
Venus.
live before. I went to a Blue Man Group show.
They did it with Venus Hum, who's like an indie. I think Venus Hum is like a indie rock outfit, if I remember correctly. But on the How to Be a Rock Star tour or whatever they called it, the girl who's the front lady of Venus Hum, and I think she is goes by Venus Hum as her stage name as well. She has this ridiculous light up dress, and she's singing the Donna Summer part.
That's cool.
And then they're doing their Blue Man Group music behind it, and it's really good. It's actually one of my favorite tracks from that tour. That, and also they covered Baba O'Reilly, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's the first. I think I Feel Love is the first song where the entire backing section, all the instruments were produced solely by synthesizer, and so that really changed the game.
The synthesizer?
Yeah, synthesizer.
Now, do you guys think we have enough time to talk about a certain MCU development?
Something that we've neglected to talk about for the past 2 weeks.
It's something we could lead off next week's episode with.
I don't know. I feel like I feel like it's been too long.
That being said, we're an hour and a half deep.
Yeah, I know. Do we dare quickly try to talk about it, or
I feel like we can't do it.
Yeah, this would be like a 2.5 hour podcast.
We are nerds.
Put a big fucking post-it note on it, and we'll and punch me in the nuts if I forget next week.
We want to talk about Age of Ultron. Don't worry,
and all the other movies.
Yeah, we haven't neglected the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
We know it's there,
but this is Geek Out. This is not Geek Out about Marvel Cinematic Universe.
We hope we're not your news source for this. Yeah. Because we only post once a week, and a lot of shit happens.
And they constantly announce things the day after we record or the day that we release the episode.
It's almost like Kevin Feige knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, fuck those guys.
Yeah, I hate those guys.
Those Geek Out guys who've only been around for a couple months.
Yeah. Damn them.
Those 3 guys recording in the basement of some Northern Virginia suburban home.
I know you're there.
Fuck them.
I know you're there. And so, I promise you.
So don't worry, imaginary friend Josh. We will talk about it.
Gentlemen and ladies, including Corey.
Corey. Yeah. Corey, we know you're listening.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to my friend Phil, who just followed us on.
Hey, Phil.
Good friend of mine.
Hi, Phil.
Big film fan and stuff. He said he loves the podcast.
Billy Fellon, one of my buddies from college.
Bronco, one of the guys that I worked with in the comic shop up in New York.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah.
We'll definitely, and all the New York friends that.
Yeah, Nicole, Ilya.
Yeah. We'll. We promise you. I promise you personally. We will talk about it in depth next week. Same Geek Out time, same Geek Out channel. We're gonna talk a shitload.
We might just dedicate the entire episode to
and I feel like we should because we talk about DC so much.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I love DC comics.
And then eventually we'll get into indie comics.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk to Corey.
Oh.
Maybe not.
Who knows?
Yeah. But
she's game.
Okay. We'll follow up on that.
I mean, yeah.
But first things first, my promise to you guys, we'll talk about Marvel Comics and their upcoming movie slate, including Avengers, the Avengers Age of Ultron.
And Phase 3.
And Phase 3 next week. All right, so this has been another installment of Catching Up with Chris, Jake, and Sam. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
And we'll see you next week with Marvel Talk.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.